Okay, hi everyone, welcome back. And in this update, we are going to check out Zebec's chart in the short term and see what is going on and what might be the next likely move. But before we get into all that, as per usual, we are going to talk some fundamentals, and specifically in today's update, I'm going to talk about this very important tweet from Simon, the CEO himself. And of course, since he's the CEO, he is a bit too optimistic, but I think what he says in here actually does matter quite a bit, and he's basically making one thing very clear. He says that Zebec is aligning itself very closely with Circle, and he's like way too optimistic, but I think there are some real value in what he's saying. Now, in case you're not really active in the crypto market, you should know that Circle is actually one of the most compliant, regulated, and institution-friendly players in the entire digital asset world. And you have probably heard of USDC, right? Well, that's actually USDC from Circle. Now, in this short clip, Simon actually compares the stablecoin race to things like the internet boom or even a space race. And again, he's like a little bit too optimistic, but I think he has some very important points in here, and we are going to break it all down. And if you watch this clip, he talks about Circle's first layer 1 chain through the ARC. And you might wonder, well, okay, what is this actually? Well, first things first, Circle has been building something called the ARC, which is basically their big institutional platform. And you need to think of it like, for example, a toolkit for banks, asset managers, and other large financial institutions. Again, not retail. Now, with this tool, they can issue stablecoins, manage tokenized assets. They're going to be able to also move money, settle transactions, all of those good stuff in a way that fits their compliance requirements. And this is again not meant for retail. It is designed specifically for the traditional financial world. Now, here's a question. What does Circle's first layer 1 actually means in here? You see, Circle at the moment is launching a new blockchain under the ARC ecosystem that we talked about earlier. And it's not like Ethereum or Solana where everybody can deploy whatever they want. Absolutely not. This chain is more like a controlled settlement network, and it is essentially a place where banks and regulated institutions can move digital dollars with predictable behavior, very much low risk, and also a strict compliance. So when Simon mentions that 100 plus institutions are already on the testnet, he is talking about the banks and financial companies that Circle has already invited to try out this new chain before it launches completely. And this, my friends, is important because it shows the direction that Circle is taking. They are building a fully institutional grade blockchain layer, which is a kind of private but at the same time public enough environment where real financial institutions can operate very much safely. Now, you might ask at this point, well, okay, what does this all have to do with Zebec? You see, Simon in this clip is saying that Zebec will be plugged directly into this new infrastructure, and that means payroll streaming, remittances, card transactions, and all the real-time payment tools that Zebec offers can connect directly to whatever these institutions build on Circle's chains. And it doesn't really mean that Zebec all of a sudden, I don't know, maybe like in a way too optimistic scenario is going to become the center of the financial world. Absolutely 100% not. It also doesn't really guarantee any mass adoption overnight, but what it does is actually open the door for them to operate inside a more regulated, standardized ecosystem, which is something every single B2B fintech eventually is going to need down the line. Now, let's get into the part that nobody is really talking about, and is how Zebec is positioned to profit massively from this Circle partnership. Because when you get into details, I think there are actually some very important benefits for Zebec in this partnership, and I got two significant points for you. Number one, Zebec essentially with this partnership just got a golden customer list handed to them. Meaning, normally a startup like Zebec would actually have to spend years and years trying to get a meeting with major banks, asset managers, fintechs, and payment institutions. You don't just walk into a room with these guys and say, hey, you know what, let's just be partners, and they are all of a sudden going to say yes. No, this is like way too optimistic. But by becoming a day one launch partner for Circle's institutional ecosystem, well, something interesting is going to happen. Zebec is all of a sudden instantly placed in front of that 100 plus pre-vetted institutions that already trust Circle. No cold outreach, no long sales cycles, no wasted marketing budget. Circle is essentially saying to the banks that here is the list of the partners already integrated, and here is Zebec, which is the company that solves payroll, flows, remittances, and corporate payments. Most crypto startups, I promise you, dream about this kind of access, and Zebec is getting it on a silver platter. So this, my friends, is in my view one very important and huge benefit of this great partnership between Zebec and Circle. Point number two, you see, Zebec's challenge was never ever about the technology. Trust me, the tech is absolutely solid. The real problem was this: how do you exactly convince conservative, slow-moving institutions to adopt both crypto and a new payroll system all at the same time? This, my friends, is a huge ask for them. But now, thanks to Circle's Arc ecosystem, well, the equation actually changes completely, because these banks are already committed to using Circle's new chain and institutional rails. So when Zebec shows up, they are not going to pitch to them a new standard. No, they are simply going to offer an application inside a system that the banks have already decided to adopt. So this, in my view, actually increases the chance of hitting mass adoption big time. Now, let's move to the final section of this part of the video, and I promise you I'm not really going to bore you with this, but trust me, these are actually the things that when it comes to fundamentals we should really care about, and I fully get it if not a lot of people want to pay attention to these things. By the first look, these do sound absolutely boring, but I think these are the things that matter if you want to invest in a good project with solid fundamentals. So let's look realistically at what this strategy means for Zebec in the mid to long term, because no matter how strong the opportunity appears to be, this is ultimately a high potential, but at the same time, high dependency move. It is very much a smart, let's not get that twisted, please, but at the same time, it's not really guaranteed. So in the midterm, meaning probably in the next 1 to 3 years, the main risk is obviously going to be the dependency itself. You see, Zebec's success on this new institutional track is now directly tied to the adoption and momentum of Circle's Arc platform, and if banks and large institutions move slowly, or maybe if Arc ends up stuck in a long testnet purgatory without a full production rollout, Zebec simply won't be able to realize the benefits that they are aiming for in here. They have essentially placed their massive bet on Circle's horse, and I do think this is actually going to play out for them. But again, it is a risk that we have to consider in here if you want to be 100% objective. Also, at the same time, this launch partner advantage is not really going to last forever, right? Because sure, right now, Zebec enjoys a valuable first mover position, but over time, more Circle approved applications and services will join the ecosystem, and that means Zebec will need to execute extremely well to maintain its lead in here. Now, if you want to be a bit positive, well, here's a very important point for you. A significant midterm win for Zebec does not really require 50 or 100 banks. No, if Zebec successfully onboards, even let's say, I don't know, 3 to 5 institutions in Circle's initial group, that alone would actually be transformative, given the fact that they are right now at least not really that much of a big company yet. So essentially, I'm trying to tell you that this is an opportunity for Zebec that is not really going to last that long. And if they want to benefit from this, they have to move relatively quickly. Now, in terms of the long-term effects, and by that, we are talking about 5 years and beyond. And from this point moving forward in this video, we are essentially speculating, but hey, it's actually quite fun. Why not? if you really want to be bullish long term, well, okay, the bull case is actually quite simple. If Circle's ARC becomes a dominant institutional network, Zebec will likely secure its position as a solid piece of on-chain financial infrastructure, and you need to think of it as the ADP of the digital asset economy, a payments and payroll engine that is so integrated and so essential that removing it is going to become quite costly and nearly very much impossible. And this opens the doors to a clear long-term outcome, which is actually now quite realistic. And it's going to be, yep, you know it, an exit, because we talked about also this subject in the previous video as well. You see, in this specific scenario, Zebec is going to become probably a natural acquisition target for traditional giants like Visa, MasterCard, ADP, or maybe even Circle itself, which may want to vertically integrate and own the most heavily used application on top of its own institutional chain. And in the previous videos, I think it was about like maybe a month or two, we talked about vertical integration. And trust me, this isn't really like that much of an unrealistic prediction. No, I think in the long term, in the next couple of years, Zebec might very well be acquired by some other companies. And trust me, at that point, we are actually going to make a good amount of money. Now, having said all these bullish stuff, we also have to, again, be absolutely objective and maybe talk about the bear case a little bit. You see, in the bear case, if ARC is going to fail to gain meaningful traction against competing institutional networks, like for example, JP Morgan's Onyx or institutional solutions built on public layer 2s, then okay, Zebec essentially will have spent years of effort integrating into a platform that never really reached scale, and that is like the core strategic risk in here. In conclusion, this is definitely a very focused and very calculated move from Zebec, and the CEO, Simon, is using Circle's institutional reputation to bypass the slow and very much difficult traditional B2B sales cycles. Yes, the company is tying its future, or at least let's just say this part of its future specifically, to Circle's trajectory. But I do think actually the future for Circle is quite bright. So let's hope that they are going to be successful, and they are. Well, I think we are going to see some good price appreciation for the token, because right now, let's be honest, not a lot of people are familiar with what Zebec is doing. And if you are listening to these videos, congratulations. I think you are like way too early. I mean, let's be honest, where are we in coin market cap? I think we are maybe somewhere around rank 150th, and even within like the top 100, people don't really know all the tokens. So rank 150th, well, probably not a lot of people at that point are familiar with Zebec, and that's why I think this is probably a good opportunity for the mid to long term. In my view, the future for Zebec and its payroll business is very much bright, and one very important reason for why I like Zebec is actually because of their business model, which is payments and remittances, so on and so forth. You see, payroll is very important to understand that it's like a very sticky business, and also it is completely outside of the crypto market, meaning no matter whether we are in a bull market or a bear market, the adoption is not really related to the price, okay? One way or the other, whether people are paying attention to the market or not, Zebec's growth will actually continue, and that is actually what I love to see. So fundamental wise, in my view, we are definitely on the right direction. Now, let's go on the live chart and see what is going on in the short term, and I'm not really sure if I have the best news for you. Okay, here we are, and at first let's talk about what is happening really in weekly time frame, because this candle right in here that closed today is not really a good sign. Why is that? You see, pay attention to the previous candle, because it seemed like back then that bears were actually in control until we had the lows in here in Zebec, and bulls sort of kind of maybe gained a bit of momentum and they pushed the price a little bit higher. Now, if the next candle, meaning this one right in here, would have actually closed as a green one, well, okay, that would have been like a great sign, suggesting, yeah, you know what, maybe right now bulls are going to be in control and they are going to send the price higher and higher. So what happened in here? First things first, the opening price is right in here, and this candle to me suggests that yes, for like a very brief period of time, bulls did actually control the price and they pushed it a bit higher, but then bears absolutely in full strength were back and they just pulled the price all the way back down here, meaning what? Probably in the current candlestick that we are on, and it just opened a couple of hours ago, bears are going to be likely in control. And that means what? Yep, two things you can expect. Number one, maybe at best, like a slow and choppy consolidation pattern, maybe something like this. And if you do not want to be optimistic, well, maybe you should consider a continuation of our move on the downside. So the candlestick analysis in weekly time frame to me definitely suggests right now, at least for like very short term, we're not really necessarily looking optimistic. Now, what about Helios waves? Unfortunately, that also suggests the same, because if you remember, the last time that we talked about Zebec, we were right around these areas, and the idea was that, well, okay, if Zebec is going to prove me wrong and say, yeah, okay, we are having a bit of a bullish setup, then, well, fair enough. This can be 5 up into 1, followed by like a truly ugly ABC flat structure into wave 2, and then another move up into wave 3, 4, 5. And I was like, well, this has to be naturally another 1 and 2 structure, and soon in Zebec we have to see a continuation of our move up into wave 3, 4, 5. That's why in the previous video we argued, okay, if we are truly bullish, then we have to see soon a continuation of this move in order to, I think we talked about this specifically in Zebec, take these important highs right in here about, let's say, generally the 0.4 of a cent area, because that means, well, essentially we have taken the previous major pivot high, and hopefully this downtrend in the short term at least has come to an end. So what happened? Not only we didn't get a move up, instead we actually got a move down. And pay attention, recently in the last couple of hours in Zebec, we literally took all the lows in here. Why is this important? Because let's just go around here. You see, excuse me. Okay, so if you want to argue that in terms of Helios waves, we're going to have our final low around this area, maybe this is like a very important support, then okay, naturally you have to be able to find off of the lowest low in here a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wave on the upside. This specific scenario is called an impulsive movement. Rules for it are, we should not have overlapping of the waves between our wave 2 and 4 and in any kind of 5 wave. Our wave 3 should not be the smallest wave. Now, the situation in Zebec is quite interesting, because even if you really want to be optimistic and assume that, yeah, okay, this is 5 wave up, this is another 5 wave on the upside, well, now that in this phase down we took all these lows, it means essentially these two 5 waves are actually on the same degree, meaning as opposed to an impulse, you're just having overall the sub waves for most likely an ABC. I'm gonna say maybe in form of a flat structure, possibly even like a WXY in form of a double zigzag. Actually, you know what? Yeah, now a double zigzag makes just a little bit more sense. Generally, this important sign, the fact that in short term we took all these lows, in my view suggests maybe our move down in Zebec is going to continue. And in my books, that may not necessarily be like a bad sign, as long as in terms of classic technical analysis, meaning support and resistances, we are not going to get a break of this very important level between 0.27 to about 0.28 of a cent. For instance, if we end up having maybe another move down in order to take the loss, and even let's say for like a very brief period of time we go under this level, but then if quickly we end up having a bounce, okay, I'm just gonna say, yeah, you know what, since this support is from some higher time frames, okay, this is just going to be a simple fake out and nothing to be worried about, and we can get yet another great move on the upside. And by a great move, you know it, obviously I'm talking about a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 followed by a consolidation pattern. If I see this, great sign. But for now, I'm gonna say, yeah, you know what, don't really expect a whole lot from Zebec. And well, what about all those great signs in terms of fundamentals that we are talking about at the beginning of every single ZBCN video? Well, those are for the mid to long terms. And sure, in the short term, we're not really looking good, but overall in the midterm, do not get it twisted. I think we are looking really optimistic, since in my view, in this initial move on the upside back in May, we are having a beautiful 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna say it's probably going to be into a wave A, followed by a correction for wave B, and the end of our correction can actually be, in my view, right in here in form of an ABC zigzag. And this can be, for instance, maybe like a 1-2 scenario, meaning what? Okay, maybe in the short term we are going to get a move down, but as long as we are not taking this important low down here about 0.24 of a cent, we can actually count on a great move up in the midterm into our wave 3 and 4 and 5. And even if you want to consider having a triangular structure in here, well, okay, one way or the other, what are we going to have? You know what? The answer is the same. Another good solid move on the upside. So in the midterm, do not get me wrong, we are looking very much optimistic and great, but in the short term, maybe we're going to get some moves on the downside, and trust me, I'm going to treat that as a beautiful buy opportunity. And I hope I explained everything well and you understood what is going on in Zebec's charts. Anyway, if you found any value in my content, I would really appreciate if you like this video and consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Twitter. And if you want more, maybe you want a complete analysis for your own specific crypto, or maybe you want to learn some decent TA in order to be able to make good money in the markets, you can become a member and ask me anything you want. And until the next update, I hope you have a wonderful time with your family and loved ones. Goodbye.